The internet exploded for a day, when Reddit released the new identity.
Once you got the project, where did you start?
There were so many icons. We literally counted hundreds.
Wow.
That was a moment of joy and terror for me.
The Snoo mascot was a point of contention.
Are we keeping the Snoo as the logo or not? We interviewed many people. Result was 50 and 50. And we're like, this is not good.
How did Reddit think about rolling this out?
There were a lot of comments on Twitter, naysayers, real critics.
Where did you take it from there?
So,
Natasha, thank you so much for making time. And
well, Blake, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
My name is Natasha Jen. I am a partner at Pentagram. I'm based in New York.
Before this project, Reddit, that we're going to talk about, were you a Reddit contributor? Like, are you the type that posts reviews or engages in threads on online communities?
I was already on Reddit, but I was one of those lurkers, okay? Meaning that I check out Reddit, okay, maybe not on a daily basis, but whenever I needed to find something, I needed to search for a very specific conversation or answers, I would go to Reddit, okay? But I did not post anything. And I have to say that posting on Reddit takes a first step, okay? Because once you're in a community, once you're in a subreddit, you just know that whatever that you say will trigger other people's responses, okay? And that thread can just go on and on for good and bad, right? So I was always very intimidated by posting on Reddit, but I didn't know that by the user types, by Reddit's user types, I would be, categorized as a lurker, okay? So after I started working with them, I learned that I was a lurker, and I was very irritated by that by that label, and I just determined that I don't want to be a lurker anymore. So I posted my first Reddit post, which was a picture of one of my dogs. Okay, so I have two dogs, and I posted, and I was on this on this subreddit. Is all about this breed. So I posted the first picture. Okay. And, of course, I was just very nervous. I was like, oh, I hope that I get a lot of, upvotes. And guess what? I did. Yes. And that first picture that I posted got like more than 1,000 upvotes.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was just totally motivated. After that, I kind of, got through my first hurdle, so I just became a lot more comfortable posting on Reddit.
Did you upgrade from lurker to something else? Like, what's the next step up from lurker?
Well, the next step would be a Redditor, but I think this is what I think. Amongst the Redditor group, you have, casual users, casual Redditors, and you have hardcore Redditors. Okay. I'm kind of in between casual and hardcore. I mean, I now check Reddit every day. I kind of use it as my news app too. Okay. And also to just see like what's trending, culturally, what's popular today. And Reddit is my first place to go now. Yeah. So my relationship with Reddit, with the app itself has improved, from that experience of working with them.
Yeah. Well, before the project, what was your perception of Reddit?
Perception as a user or perception as a designer, as a branding person?
I mean, maybe both. I think you kind of your personal perception, which would combine probably both of those parts of who you are. What just came to mind for you if anyone ever said Reddit, or if it came up in conversation? Like, what was the thing that would just come to you?
Yeah, well, Reddit is sort of like this public forum. I use the metaphor of a town hall. You just have like gazillions of town halls happening all the time, right? And being a town hall means that you have visibility, but still, you're anonymous. People don't know who you are, right? But whichever voice that you put out there or content that you put out there, which will get people react to it. Okay, there's something that I think is very intimidating about that, and that's a kind of different intimidation in terms of feeling from, say, posting on Twitter or Instagram. Okay, because the responses that you get from Reddit are typically a lot more genuine, are a lot deeper. Okay, meaning that because it's a subject based channel, right? And people have real genuine reactions, and it's not the same as people clicking on like, or people post a kind of emoji, right?
Mm,
Reddit's just like real thoughts from real people, and there's something
mm,
that is a little intimidating about that. So
mm,
that was why I never really posted on Reddit. But also, Reddit had a lot of really, I think, creative, idiosyncratic features. Okay, such as there was this awards, program that had hundreds of emojis. Okay, that you could, give them to any post that you like, or any users, that you like, right? And the whole array of these visual elements was a little overwhelming. Yeah.
mm.
That is very different, from any other platforms, but that like those really creative things, and also weird things like karma, for example. Like, I was like, what is karma? Karma is basically the points that
Mm,
you accumulate over time, right? Based on how frequently you participate, right, in a conversation,
yeah.
or
Huh.
how frequently you participate to the platform. Every time you have, participation, you get some points, right? And you accumulate your karma, right? But just by the term karma, right? There's something that's sort of like weird and
Yeah.
interesting and intimidating about that. But I didn't know that there's a very large population, and young generation using Reddit as a sort of go-to place. Yeah, I
Yeah.
knew that, and
Yeah.
I knew that is where they find their communities, and that's where they find that their news. But for me, I just felt that I was maybe a little, maybe just not savvy enough for Reddit,
Mm.
and maybe a little too old,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you remember the first time you heard about the chance to work with Reddit?
Yeah, so Reddit send out an RFP to Pentagram, and our new business person brought a project to me, and I looked at it. I was very excited. The RFP was very clear. It was a PDF that had like really good, well structured content, and really outlined the history of the brand, and also the recent brand elements that they created, campaigns. It was just really thorough, and also the goal for the brand is to go global. Okay, starting with very specific regions. So all these things combined together just really excited me, and not to mention that like. Reddit is a global brand, and it's also one of the most trafficked websites in the world. Like if you
Hmm.
search top 10 most traffic websites, Reddit is always in the top 10. Sometimes it's the third, sometimes it's the seventh, right?
Hmm.
So you don't run into an opportunity like that often. So
Yeah.
those qualities really excited me.
Yeah. That's awesome. And what was the problem that they wanted an agency to help with? Was it the fact they were going global? Did they want to just like elevate their identity? Did they have a specific problem that they wanted you to solve?
Great question. Reddit understood their challenges really well. Okay, and that was really amazing as a kind of condition for us to enter, because a lot of times, and I'll talk about what are those conditions that I recognize. A lot of times when we enter a project, when the client is not clear about their own challenges, you have to spend a lot of time helping them identify what the real challenges are, therefore, what the real assignment is. right? A
Mm,
lot of times they would just assume that, changing a logo could actually accomplish certain things, but you realize that the issues are not really in the logo itself, it's
mm,
something else, right? But Reddit really understood their challenges, and there are several things. First of all, Reddit is an incredibly creative and prolific company in terms of producing ideas as well as content. Okay, so
mm,
over time, they created just a very large volume of visual materials, okay, from
mm,
certain things that are very specific to the features and products, features in the platform itself. Like I said, hundreds of different emojis, there are awards, there's like a pile of cash, that you can give to people. They just accumulated so much of that. Okay, so that became really difficult for
mm,
any new users to even just grasp what to do with that. Okay, so they said that we accumulated this pile, very large volume of visual assets, right? Be features, and then therefore, visuals in the product itself, as well as all the sort of marketing visuals that we have created. Okay, so first of all, please help us understand how we can move forward with that. Secondly, our platform can be intimidating to new
mm.
users, and we
Yeah.
think that the very large pile of those visuals, many of them manifested in features, are contributing to this intimidation. Okay, like I said, karma was intimidating to me, right? And all those emojis, right? I didn't know what to do with them. Those were intimidating to me. Just even like, simple, like, hallmark features like upvote, downvote, like for any new users, you're like, are these like likes, dislikes, right?
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
So there are all these really unique Reddit things that could become intimidating to new users. Okay. And they wanted us to help them simplify, simplify, simplify. So that was the
Mm,
first challenge that I recognized. The second challenge was that internally they knew that, okay, they're going to, grow as a company. They were considering IPO. They told us about that, but yet at the same time, they didn't have an aligned internal vision. Okay, on the visual identity, they all
mm,
had very strong opinions on their own. But as a team, they needed to reconcile. Okay, all these different point of views. For example, if we are growing up as a brand, are we keeping the Snoo, right? This sort of very childlike, creature, right? Or do we get rid of it? And that itself was a very controversial topic, in Reddit. So when we entered the project, the challenges were already clearly identified by them, which was really really great, and also in terms of the verbal identity, right? Reddit had this, the mission that is the front page of the internet, right? And they were like, well, that felt no longer relevant, in today's, market. Are we still the front page? Meaning, like, we're not a physical like newspaper anymore, right? But that was really cool. Like when we first came out, so help us, also look at our verbal identity. So that was all really
mm.
really great, and then we could just like kick off the project right away with them.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about just winning the work. Why do you think they chose Pentagram?
Well, you have to ask them that question, right? But we met with the leadership. We met with the leadership from the brand team, and the meeting went really well. I presented a couple of past projects that I thought were relevant to that assignment, in some way, and I think my projects resonated with them. And then we met with the leadership, with Roxy, the CMO, with a couple of other folks, and those meetings went really really well. And I think that maybe they just sensed that we got their we got their problems right away. Yeah, like I use the Marie Kondo, metaphor, right? That this is really about coming into a house that's being hoarding right, for
Mm,
a while. Yeah, and we're gonna help you clean up, and reorganize. I think that metaphor might have resonated with them. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Take all of your emojis, hug them, thank them, and then
And
send
then
them
you
out the
may have to
door.
say goodbye to them. And they were like, hey,
Yeah.
in fact, we are in the process of saying goodbye to some of them. So glad that you spotted that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, who on the Reddit side were you working mostly with? You mentioned the brand team. Were you working with a smaller group that you kind of went through the project with, or was there a larger team? Who was like your main point of contact, and what was the size of the client team?
Yeah, it was a really well structured team. Okay, and I can tell you why it is one of the most well structured team I have worked with. Well, first of all, our key leadership, consists of a very small group of people. Okay, and Tavish, who is the brand lead, he leads the brand studio. He was always the main contact person. He was sort of like the main leader. Okay, really kind of working with us on a day to day basis, right, leading the project forward. But we would have bigger group meetings, right, with their comms team, with their digital team, and with their product team, for example. That it was a very flexible team, and then the right people would be brought in at the right conversation. Okay, and it was done just really really fluidly. And also Reddit was really well organized in terms of how they share their materials in an incredibly organized manner. How they provide feedback, for example, was also incredibly well organized.
Mm,
So the process was really, really smooth. Yeah, and if you think about like the experience where the sort of complexity of working with a global brand, with a brand that I think has this sort of very creative spirit, inherent, in the culture. The way that they conducted the project was just really really incredible. It was amazing. It was a pleasure, yeah,
mm.
to work with.
Yeah, I love that. Isn't it interesting how much that impacts the work, the way the client side is structured, the way they handle feedback, the way they
100%.
engage? That's not something you learn in design school. They don't.
Yeah, and that is something that has nothing to do with design, but
Yeah.
it's really like it's really people's behaviors, right, that create the condition for the project. How they structure themselves. Are they organized or are they disorganized? Are they bringing in all the right people at the right moment, right? Are they organizing their conflicting internal point of views in such a way that help you digest, or do they just put everything together in a spreadsheet, and they say go figure it out, right? But I think that Reddit really kind of understood all the important things that will help an agency like us to do the best work, and they really did great on that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. So once you got the project and you said, okay, now we got to figure this out. Where did you start?
Okay. So the project primarily consists of two aspects. Okay, both are identity. The verbal identity is to look at their brand positioning in relationship to today's culture, market context, as well as the competitive, space, right? And then with that, you would then, review the brand positioning, really work on, the right articulation, right, for the mission, for the values, all these different important layers, right, of the foundation. That is one aspect. But then there's also the visual aspect of things. And for Reddit, that part was a lot more complex and time consuming than I thought. Okay, just
Mm,
in terms of understanding what we're confronting. Okay, so like I said, Reddit had this massive, massive volume of visual work, and a lot of them were product related features. So that added another layer of complexity because if their product features, you have to think about the implications of doing anything to them. Okay. Meaning, if you update the look and feel, okay, and you're updating them over, say, I don't know how many hundreds, of those emojis, for example, like how do you even begin to do that, right?
Yeah.
And what is the user experience implication on that, right? So there were all these layers of complexities within the Reddit visual world that we spend a lot of time trying to actually really decipher, trying to actually identify what are the different parts, what are these things, first of all, right? Do we understand everything, and what are the issues, right? One component at a time. That took a
Mm.
lot of time, but we're
Mm.
doing that in the background while we were actively working on the brand positioning, looking at the competitor space, looking at Reddit's history in relationship to today's, market and relationship to, our digital culture, right? We're doing that work upfront, and we had presentations and conversations, workshop with them, interviews, right? But in the background, we're just doing the visual audit, and that took a while.
Hmm. Yeah. How did you all clarify the brand positioning?
Yeah, great question. So, as you know, brand positioning is never an external facing thing, meaning that, it's not a tagline. It's not about a campaign idea, but rather it's really about how we think about ourselves in a kind of very organized and disciplined and focused manner, right? So, Reddit's challenge was that, well, first of all, I have to say that it's a brand and it's a group of people that I think very just know who they are, okay, as an organization, and I think that they know their relationship with their platform. They know their relationship with their users, with Redditors. Okay, well, first of all, Reddit doesn't call their users. They call everybody a Redditor. Okay, and
Hmm.
there's also moderators, right, which is a very large community that represents, the Redditors community. Okay,
Hmm.
so that's the first thing. That's very important because that is going to actually enter every aspect of the project. Okay, or most aspects of the projects. Okay, so brand positioning. So Reddit had this, mission that is the front page of the internet. Okay, so that thing came out, I think, in 2005, just upon the birth of Reddit, right? And that really stuck with the company and with Redditors. Okay, so Reddit was like, well, we know that's something very endearing to us, but we're not sure if it is still relevant in today's time. That was the first thing. The second thing was we value our community. 100%. There wouldn't have been Reddit, okay, without our, millions of people community out there. How do we bring that? How do we fold that into, our brand positioning and brand narrative? Okay. So the first thing that we did was to unpack the front page of the internet, that aspect, of the whole thinking. First of all, like what does that even mean, right?
Yeah.
And is it relevant? Yes or no, right? That's the first question we have to answer. And if not, why? Or if yes, why, right? And if there were anything else other than this, what would that even be today, right? So we looked at where we are today, okay, in our digital life, couple of big realities. The first thing is that social media brands play with algorithm on their users 100%. I don't need to name who they are, right?
Yeah.
They really try to use algorithm to get you, hooked to the platform, right? By pushing you, certain content, so on and so forth. So Reddit doesn't use algorithm to manipulate you with certain types of content. They may suggest subreddits that they think you may like, but those are not ads. Okay,
Hmm.
those are not like, hey, you may be interested in buying this or that. They're just other content that they think you may like. That's really the only thing that they do. Okay.
Hmm.
And once you are in a subreddit, you don't have any algorithm there that tries to actually play up or play down the content at all.
Hmm.
The up and down of a content is done purely by democracy. That
Hmm.
is people's upvote or downvote, right? So that is incredibly authentic and real. Okay. And that's something that we want to recognize and also, amplify. And of course, through more poetic kind of articulation. So there, that was the first thing. Second thing, which I think, in today, 2024 March, right? This is a lot more relevant than say, a year ago. So Reddit's content is entirely generated by people,
Hmm.
no AI. Okay, that is critical, and we
Hmm.
have this large human knowledge accumulated over time on Reddit. It's 100% human knowledge. Okay,
Hmm.
and as you might have seen in the news today, that knowledge base has become really valuable for
Yeah.
training AI, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So and then we can talk about that later, but that humanness is critical to Reddit, right? No algorithm, trying to get you addicted, right? No AI generated content or fake content there. The up and down is driven by purely democracy. So that is an entirely human thing, right?
Hmm.
So we
Yeah.
want to actually foreground that. So with that in mind, we came up with this, revised mission that is the heart of the internet. Right. If you think about the heart, that itself
Hmm.
is something that feels warm and fuzzy and real and human.
Hmm.
Okay. So you see that, the way that we do brand positioning is something that has to be rooted in reality. Yeah, and then you really figure out what are the important differentiators or ideas there, right? And you figure out a way to poeticize that or to amplify that. And that
Hmm.
was the first thing that we did for the positioning part. And there were other layers, too. But by
Yeah.
doing that, it helps Reddit to realize that they don't have to have the word community in any of their brand positioning in but to actually tell the community story,
Hmm.
right? Because every other brands in our research, other social media brands, everybody uses community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from there, the heart of the internet, you transition into a creative process, or you start bringing creative work to Reddit and to your client at some point. And you had mentioned this in our planning call that the internal team at Reddit had been iterating on the brand for years. They had all kinds of various explorations that they brought to you. Did they bring you those like at the beginning of the creative process or like mid into sort of creative design explorations? When did they say, "Hey, Natasha, what do y'all think about this?"
Oh, they gave us everything. They were so transparent, which was really refreshing. Because typically brands always just want to show the best of what they have, right? But Reddit was so transparent. So they brought us everything, and then we looked at everything, and my heart sank. Okay,
Mm.
my heart sank because they put a lot of thinking in trying to solve this. They tried different logo types. They tried different they didn't do so much on the Snoo, but they tried a lot with the logo type, with the typeface. So when somebody has put a lot of work into that, right, you don't want to just come in and wipe all that away pretending that it never existed. Okay, you wanted to actually first of all acknowledge that and try to really ask yourself an important question, that is there anything valuable here?
Hmm.
right? For us to bring it to life, for us to actually incorporate, right? So that was a kind of very thoughtful process that we had to go through. But like I said before, we spent a lot of time trying to understand the Reddit universe, okay? Because there were so many types of things, each existed in pure abundance. For example, we literally counted everything.
Hmm.
Like, oh, for this type of icons, you have 300. For for the for the snoo emojis, okay, there's another type that's called the snoo emojis. That is basically human beings or figures that are dressed up as the snoo.
Hmm.
Okay, so Reddit did a group of snoomojis of themselves. So, and that's actually in their brand asset folder. So we first of all downloaded everything, right? We went to the website. It's a online platform. We downloaded the folder, or I was looking at that page, and I was like, I was counting. I really just wanted to count how many are there in each group. Okay, so the snoo emoji, we had a couple of hundreds there. And as I was scrolling down, looking at each one, some were dressed up as a painter, some were dressed up as a plumber, and I looked at each had a file name. And I looked at the file name. I was like, Steve, by the way, Steve is the CEO, Oh, here's Roxy. Roxy is the CMO. So that you see the sort of creative spirit of the company, right? And
Yeah.
that was a moment of joy and terror for me, right? It was joy because I just knew that, wow, I'm going to be working with this group of really creative fun people, right? But it was a terror because if they had done snoomojis of themselves, I wasn't really sure how many are out there,
Hmm.
right, that is not in front of me. So
Yeah.
so it was both, joy and terror at the same time.
Hmm.
So we counted everything, and we kind of again identified all the different groups of things, as well as the varieties. It was just like a really nerdy process, but we had to go through that process in order to go back to Reddit and tell them that your visual challenge can be summarized to these two issues. Okay, the first one is excessive variables.
Hmm.
Okay, everything has excessive variables, such as the snoo, okay, multiplied by the overabundance in quantity.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So that was literally a slide, okay, to them. Excessive variables multiplied by, just crazy abundance, right? So they have to actually acknowledge that, yes, you're right, okay, because they're so in it, right? And they were the producers and the creators of those. They never probably thought about just, how much there's out there. So that had to be established to actually make a case, right? You
Hmm.
have to make a case first, and then you start to actually peel the artichoke one group at a time, one element at a time, right? To actually clean up and like simplify the entire system.
So
Yeah.
the Snoo mascot was a point of contention. It's been around for a long time. I even found online that the one of the co-founders originally sketched it or created it while bored in a marketing class. So it's like this artifact that's been around with for Reddit's brand forever. It's connected to the founders. It's probably very personal to the one of the
It is
co-founder.
very it's a very emotional icon for them. So like you said, right, Alexis Ohania drew that as one of the co-founders, right, and he was with Reddit for a long time, and while he was with Reddit, he was also very he was protective, right, of the drawing, and Reddit also didn't want to throw it away. So that stayed on. But that icon, the original version that he created, I think was tweaked a little bit. Okay. at one point, and that became the app icon. But on the marketing side, as well as the platform experience side, this Reddit, this Snoo just took on an entirely different life. Okay,
Hmm.
so Tavish, who is the the brand lead, right? He really figured out a way to create many, many, many variations of the Snoo. So he literally created a feature, a function, okay, in the app, in the platform itself, that you can actually stylize the Snoo by
Hmm.
choosing accessories. Okay, but we're again talking about hundreds of accessories that you could choose from. I mean, it was just really crazy. It was so
Yeah.
refreshing, but it was really crazy at that
Yeah.
time, And Tavish was like, "Yeah, Natasha, I drew a lot of these." And he's a very, very advanced illustrator as well. Okay, so those were like very skillfully drawn. And then there are all these Snoo illustrations out there, okay, like Snoo doing things, very quirky, very fun illustrations, right? As editorial, elements sometimes is the main thing in the marketing campaign. So we're looking at those. We're like, oh my God, like Snoo just needs one version. Okay, but then here there's also this 2D accessorize as you wish version, right? That's what Tavish has done, and that is also an app feature. And that
Hmm.
is a very important feature because when you get onto Reddit, you choose your Snoo avatar, you choose your accessories, right? You can't just like rip all that apart. Okay.
Hmm.
So we thought that, okay, let's do this very methodically. We're going to keep the 2D Snoo version, which is already codified with tons of accessories, that can remain in the app itself. But then for the other Snoos, we just needed one version. Okay. So that
Hmm.
was the idea. But then the biggest question that we had to actually have a lot of conviction about was, are we keeping the Snoo as the logo or not?
Hmm.
Right? My gut instinct was yes, we should. Why? Because, first of all, it's just adorable. That's you don't need any other reason than that. Okay, it's adorable. It's just adorable. And then okay, on top of that, it's been with a brand since day one, right? It's been working with a brand. It's been working for the brand. It's been with all the redditors all this time. Okay, it's a little messy right now, exists in different shapes and forms, but we can clean it up, right? So that was the point of view
Hmm.
that we brought it. And in fact, I just couldn't imagine Reddit exist as a brand without the Snoo.
Hmm.
It's sort of like trying to like take away Mickey Mouse from Disney, right?
Hmm.
Of course their patent expired, that's a different issue, but it's trying to like do that, right? That was just something really unthinkable to
Yeah.
me. So
Well,
our go ahead.
well, was the team on board with that, or was the team kind of split? At least at the beginning stages when they're briefing you and getting you up to speed, were they like, "Oh yeah, we've got to keep the Snoo," or were they like, "We don't know. Some people want to keep the Snoo, some people don't want to keep the Snoo." Were they a little bit split?
It was 50-50.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we interviewed many people there, right? By the departments, by the different functions, and the accumulated result was 50 and 50. And we're
Hmm.
like, this is not good. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, but we made our decision, and then we went in with a conviction, and we also brought in strategy as to how to bring to life this Reddit, right? So the first decision was we want to keep it for all these reasons. Secondly, this is how we think it can be just not just cleaned up, but start to take on a new chapter, okay, in his life. And let's look at the 3D Snoo. So we presented all that all at once, okay,
Hmm.
just to really make a case, right? So it's not just about, hey, let's keep it, but rather let's keep it, but this is what we should do with it, okay? So that got traction with our immediate client group, okay, the brand group. They were like, yeah, they were in agreement. So they brought that thinking into the company, and they kind of they had to just like weather the storm about the snow in the company. I heard later on that they had to really kind of battle
Hmm.
out. Yeah, and there were just people. There were people who were like, and I think I relate to those people's point of views. They're like, if we're growing up, why are we holding on to this childish, creature, right? And
Yeah.
also, the Snoo always had a story to it that, that the story was Snoo comes out from the outer space. Okay, Snoo's an alien. Right, and then you're like, what does an alien have to do with anything, right here? Okay, so that was the first reason to throw it out. Okay, and then
Yeah.
the secondly was, the Snoo also has an antenna so that it could receive Wi-Fi. Okay, so you see, like those ideas all came out from the early internet time, right? And you're like, Wi-Fi, really? That's like everywhere now. So there's that camp that just feel that Reddit really represented the past of Reddit, and
Hmm.
not the future. But there's this group that really kind of sees the value of the Snoo,
Hmm.
and then they really protected it, and that's why we have the Snoo today. So thanks to our Reddit team, and thanks to all of them, right, to reach that agreement that the Snoo has values. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's adorable.
Team Snoo. Team
Yeah,
Snoo won.
team.
So you went into the first creative presentation to make a case to keep the Snoo. It sounds like you had a point of view.
Yeah.
Did you share options? Did you show concepts and routes and directions, or did you just really have, hey, this is our single recommendation?
It was our single recommendation on the Snoo, okay. But we did so. This is a case, okay. Red is a case where uh, on the Snoo itself, it was more like like a subtle plastic surgery work that you have to do. Meaning that you're not here to change the entire face, okay? You're
Yeah.
here to do right, just a little, maybe facelift here, a little bit contouring there, right? And that was the work that we brought in, okay? So we really straightened out the geometry. Okay, we really looked at how we can actually build this face, and they're all just like circles, right? The face, the head is an oval, the eyes are two circles. The antenna on top of that is another circle. It's all circular forms. So we brought in a very, clear square-based blueprint, and we redrew the Snoo on top of that, so you could see the before and after. Yeah, and it was like a slight, face surgery. Okay, so
Hmm.
that was that. But then, in the first presentation, we also wanted to actually bring out all the other important elements that we saw that were again tied to the brand positioning that we did, also tied to the form of the Snoo, and that was the speech bubble. Okay,
Hmm.
so yeah, speech bubble. It's a really common graphic element, and our job was to make it uniquely Reddit. Okay, so we use the Snoo as the basic form. There are all the circular contour around it, and we use that to draw the speech bubble we brought in, but we also integrated the speech bubble into this typeface, which they already had. Okay, so they built
Hmm.
out, yeah, their Reddit typeface, which had different, I think, 5 different weights. So we picked the weight that was the boldest, okay, and then we incorporated the speech bubble into the counter of the letter D, the P, and the O, for example, and share that with them. And they were pleasantly surprised by that. They're like, oh yeah, like this is very interesting. So you see that, the heart of the design side of things was just really about, first of all, identifying important elements that we really wanted to and really had to hold on to. Okay. And then to really go in and do this sort of masterful surgical work on that, so that you start to establish consistency across these different elements, right? You start to establish formal relationship between them so that they all come together as a family as opposed to disparate elements. Yeah. So
Hmm. Yeah.
that's what we did.
Yeah. Okay. So once you had that presentation, seems like you got really good positive feedback. And then was it just sort of downhill from there in terms of finalizing, fine tuning, building out maybe more layers to the visual language? Where did you take it from there?
Oh well, after that, yes, we started the fine tuning, phase, right? Which again, you had to, we had to fine tune element by element. Okay, so for example, color palette that went on for a
Mm,
while. Yeah, people would say, well, red is color is red orange, right? They call it orange red. What's the problem? Well, the problem was that Reddit had a secondary color palette, and some of those palettes were also associated with the UI colors. Okay, so you see that whenever there's a product coming in, it just further complicates, right,
yeah.
the assignment, because then you had to look at ADA, all these things, right? But also you want to establish a palette for the brand too, and the brand colors, they're different from the UI colors. So we had to tackle the color challenge with them, and they were really detail oriented about the colors, right? About the combinations, which colors are they? Does the green go well with the orange red, and do we need something warmer here? So that process was very, very collaborative. Lots of back and forth and several rounds. Yeah, and
Hmm.
that's just on the color itself, right? And there's
Yeah.
the typography itself. They really look at all the details, how the speech bubble is integrated into the counter form. That again took a lot of back and forth. And then there's the expression of the speech bubble, because the speech bubble was not a static thing. It could actually stretch, it could actually elongate, right? And what do these things actually do? And photography was another big thing, because Reddit uses a lot of user generated photography, and as you
Hmm.
know, the quality of those is not always the best, right?
Yeah.
So what can we do to actually make them feel they're part of the brand language, right? How do we incorporate them with the speech bubble? So all those things, took a lot of back and forth. Yeah.
Hmm.
A lot of back
Yeah.
and forth, a lot of meetings, a lot of, collaboration between us and them.
Yeah. Was there a pivotal moment where you had to get some approvals? Like, was there a moment you had to take all of this to the CEO or someone, a board or someone to say, like, okay, yes, whether you presented that or the brand team on the Reddit side did that? Was there something where you were kind of holding your breath, like, oh, I hope this goes well?
I hope it goes well. Yeah. Well, the Reddit team engaged their leadership, okay, meaning Roxy, right, and EK, who represents the product side, and Steve, the CEO. So I think the whole Snoo, modification, or the Snoo update was presented to him very casually.
Hmm.
I think he may have just been like walking down, the desk, and he saw it, something like that, right?
Hmm.
And he looked at it. He was like, "I like it," and that was it. That was like a sign off.
Yes. Love
Great,
it.
great.
Yeah.
And Roxy was somebody who would show up at our presentations whenever she could. So she was always, yeah, pretty deeply engaged with the work, and that was really great too.
I'm curious, just, if you zoom out and think about the whole process, what element of the rebrand did you think worked the best? There's the Snoo, there's the type adjustment, there's the color, there's the imagery. There's a lot that you all did. What are some of the things that you are just most proud of?
Well, it's impossible to isolate one thing because designing an identity is really like designing a piece of machinery, and this machinery has many gears, has many parts, and you can look at one at a time. But ultimately, they all have to be put together, and this machine has to work.
Hmm.
That is really the thing that people don't really see because it's a lot easier to identify things element by element, right? Really
Yeah.
kind of rip apart the typeface, the snoo, the speech bubble, right? That's easy, right? But to actually put this machinery together in such a way that all the gears work together with one another, that was really the thing that I'm most proud of. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's this
I
machinery, right? They all have to connect together, but you can actually use one or two elements at a time too, and that works great too, right? But it's really designing a machinery system here.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
really resonates with me. I like that. I think that it helps you understand more of the value that a group like Pentagram is bringing. You're not just doing a logo. Sometimes you'll hear, news stories about usually a public entity where the amount of money that was spent on a logo gets disclosed and it's big news and it's like, well, Reddit didn't hire Pentagram to just come up with a logo and then you guys slap a logo and stuff and then you're out. You were hired to create a system like that
yeah,
that produces consistently, effective materials and helps solve the problem. So I love that. I think that's a really great analogy to use for the work that we do.
yeah. And that was in their brief, right? That was in Roxy's brief, right? She said
Mm,
that we desperately need a foundation. We need this foundation that can last over time, right?
mm.
So just
Yeah.
yeah, think about that, right? A foundation is not a static piece of rock, right? A foundation is this machinery that is constantly turning and turning, but it doesn't matter how it turns, the outcome remains more or less consistent, right? That's the beauty of a brand system. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. So how did Reddit start to think about rolling all of this out either internally or going to market external? Because if you're a moderator, if you're in the moderator community and you're more than a lurker, like you're really engaged with the brand, that you could feel a sense of membership and a sense of ownership, which usually solicits some really direct feedback. How did Reddit think about rolling this out to their staff internally, but then also to the broader community?
Well, they did it so well. I really give them a lot of credits in handling that. Well, first of all, any brand rollout, in a brand that's at this scale, right? And also it's a digital brand. A lot of features, user experiences, all those are they're intertwined together. Just that itself is difficult, okay?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have a large community out there who all have opinions about this, right? And you may get, really heartbreaking feedback from people, or you may get thumbs up, right? You don't know. But Reddit, first of all, really mapped out an action plan. Okay, step by step, phase by phase. They
Mm,
faced the launching, right? So there was the big, announcement, hey, here's a new Reddit, right? That was orchestrated. But also in the back end, when to release certain things, that was all orchestrated. But I think the most important thing, which they did really well, was actively answering Redditors' feedback and
mm,
questions on Reddit.
hmm,
Yeah. Explaining why they did what they did, explaining the 3D snow, explaining the speech bubble, explaining this and that, right? So they did an incredibly good job on
hmm.
that. Yeah. And we're talking about like real critics out there.
Yeah.
on Reddit,
Yeah.
and people are like, like why did you make the Snoo 3D? I really miss the old Snoo, right? They had to have an
Yeah.
answer for that. They have to say, well, we hear you, we miss the old Snoo too, but we're a lot more excited about this Snoo rebirth, right? So
Yeah.
they skillfully handle that.
Again, when you kind of zoom out and think about all of this, what are some of your key takeaways or lessons learned from the Reddit rebrand?
Uh, your the people in a project, meaning your clients, right? They make they really make the experience for you. And
Mm,
we were really really lucky working with a group of collaborative, positive, wonderful, disciplined, organized group of people. That
mm,
is very, very hard to find. And that really underscores, everything about this project for me. And of course, the outcome was incredibly satisfying. I think that I've just been thinking about this recently. That I've been at Pentagram for almost 12 years now, right? And I have worked on all types of projects, brands big and small. But Reddit, really marked a very important milestone for me in my
mm,
career.
mm,
For all the reasons that I mentioned previously, right? It's a global brand. It has a very large user base. One of the most trafficked websites in the world. All these things, Snoo, really iconic, right? For all these reasons, But for me, it also feel that the project was born out of this really wonderful collaborative process with this really nice group of people, right?
mm.
Yeah. So that was everything for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. What do you hope the future holds for Reddit and its brand?
I hope that's a great question. So they're gonna go IPO anytime soon. Uh, they're currently valued at 5 billion. I think that for a brand of this global scale, I think 5 billion is actually very small. Okay,
Hmm.
I think that this is a great moment for them to grow, and I also think that their this incredible, knowledge base, this human knowledge base on the platform I hope that it can become a very positive um, ingredient in AI training. I mean, let's just face it. All the data on the internet is going to be fed into AI. We already know
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
You can't escape it. It's all connected, right? So, I know that, a lot of people are probably not going to be happy just about the reality that, the Reddit data, the knowledge pool is likely going to be fed into, AI training. But I think of it the other way. That is, this content would actually help us, right? Train better AI, right? Yeah, because that's real human language. English, of course, is all North America. It's primarily American. But that cultural aspect is a different question. But
Hmm.
I hope that they can really build another business model with this. And while providing this really great platform that people really enjoy.
Yeah. The human knowledge database is fascinating. Like I've never thought of that, and I'm sure the founders envisioned a community where you could really go deep on a subject and you could have subreddits, but I wonder if they ever realized the value of that data set of all
I
those
think they
opinions
do
and all
now.
those thoughts.
I think
Yeah.
they do now. That's why,
Yeah.
we had this whole API saga, right? Where Reddit realized that, wow, big tech is just taking our data for free and
Mm,
training our AI. We have to actually just close all the API now, right? This is
mm.
not like an open door that anybody
Yeah.
come in, right? That was the first recognition, and that actually created, the shutdown of all the other third party apps, right? That were using their API, and
Hmm.
they had to shut it down. I think that I think they recognized that, but I think they might have already figured out how to turn it into a business model, a product, or they're in the process of figuring that out. But I think that they recognize how valuable it really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Natasha, that's all my questions. Is there anything that we missed or anything else you want to add?
Uh, long life to the Snoo.
Long live the Snoo. I wish I could do the,
Long live
I
the
wish I could
Snoo.
do,
Long live the
yeah.
Snoo.
If I focus, I can kind of do that, but it's like,
Long live the Snoo. Yeah.
I love it. That's great. Natasha, thanks so much. Appreciate your time. Thanks for
Thank
walking us
you.
through
Thank
the
you, Ray.
story.
It's a
And
pleasure.
yeah, I love your input. I love your perspective and your philosophy and all of it. And no wonder you got a chance to shape and design and refresh such a significant brand because you're just a brilliant person. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.